Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not imagine that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish but to complete them. I tell you solemnly, till heaven and earth disappear, not one dot, not one little stroke shall disappear from the law until its purpose is achieved. Therefore, the man who infringes even one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be considered the least in the kingdom of heaven. But the man who keeps them and teaches them will be considered great in the kingdom of heaven." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The Torah was very important for the Israelites, the Jewish people, and the Torah would be the first 5 books of the Bible, the book of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But out of all these 5, some of them were really just history, like the book of Genesis was important for them to know where they came from, and the book of Exodus, which was so important to know what they went through and every other thing. And the book of Numbers as well, all historical. But also the book of Leviticus, and most importantly, the book of Deuteronomy was very important for the Jewish people, because that was what constituted what was known as the law of Moses. And that's what we hear in the first reading of today. And what was this book about? It was actually just Moses speaking. The book of Deuteronomy is all about Moses, we know, did not enter the promised land. So just before the people of Israel, after being in the desert for 40 years, they wanted to enter into the promised land. Moses was standing with them and speaking to them, giving them warnings of how they are to live. I tell them what you should do in order to receive blessings, and if you don't do those things, then you'll be ready to get the consequences of that. And so it's a book of blessing and a book of curses. You will find things like that in the book of Deuteronomy, about what you can do and then you receive blessings, and also what you can do and you'll be cursed. And then the assurance of Moses that he will continue to be with the people. And so the people of Israel, even right to the time of Jesus, they took this very importantly, the law of Moses, what Moses said. And this is where they had a lot of encounters with Jesus, because he said, this is what Moses told us. This is what Moses told our ancestors. He said this. What do you say? Like they brought the woman who was caught in the act of adultery in John's Gospel chapter 8. And he said, the law of Moses has said we should do this. What do you say? Another quotation would be, Moses said in the in the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 19, Moses said that if a man wants to divorce a woman, he should write a writ and whatever. And then Jesus says this, Moses said that, but now I tell you this. So that was the kind of thing that was happening in the time of Jesus. And so the people had an impression, especially the authority. The Jewish authority, the scribes, the Pharisees, the high priest, they always thought that Jesus had come to destroy this law, because Jesus came with something new. He was telling them, no, it's true, Moses said this, but now this is what you should do. And this is where, in the Gospel of today, Jesus wants to clarify this. And he says, I did not come to abolish this law of Moses. I did not come to cancel it. I did not come to replace it. Rather, I came to fulfill that law. I came to make it whole. And how does he do this? Later on, when if we read the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 22, we hear where he says, where a lawyer comes to him and he asks him, which of the commandments is the greatest? And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And that was very much known to all the Jewish. It was actually called the Shema Israel. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And they would write this law and put it on the doorpost. They would repeat it to their children all the time. They would repeat this law whenever they were walking or even when they were sleeping. They had to be repeating this law. And at times they would tie it on their forehead. And when a Jewish person is entering a new house or a friend's house, he would touch that law on the door. It was really something like takbalai here. It was not really takbalai, but they would just touch that law and they bless themselves with that law. Not with the sign of the cross, but touch it and bless themselves. And Jesus said to this lawyer, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, because it was all known to him, to the Jewish people. But then he said the second one, the second is as important as the first. And he says, you must love your neighbor as you love yourself. That is something that was new. That was something, the fulfillment of the law that Jesus talks about. That is not only the love of God, but also the love of neighbor. And in fact, the love of God is expressed in the love of neighbor. And that is the real meaning of the Transfiguration. The real meaning of Jesus on Mount Tabor, illumined, and there appeared Moses, a symbol of the law, and the prophet Elijah, a symbol of prophecy. So Jesus fulfills not only the law, but also the prophets. And this is exactly what he talks about in the gospel of today. Jesus came to fulfill the law not through any other thing, but through giving it the touch of love. And this is what the authorities did not understand. They thought he had come to break the law, but actually he came to fulfill it by the love that he showed to others. And it says the law must come after love. The law is very important for every society. We must have laws in a seminary. We must have laws in schools. Otherwise, we must have traffic laws. Otherwise, we will have chaos. But the law is meant to guide us. It is not meant to enslave. And this is what the people did not get. Jesus said, before the law, there is love. Before the law, there is love. So, for instance, think about the parable of the Good Samaritan. That this man is broken, is beaten, is almost dying. And then there is a priest going to offer sacrifices, and a Levite also possibly going to offer sacrifices as well. And they pass by, because the law says, if you touch somebody who has blood or a foreigner, then you are unclean. Jesus says, no. The priority is not the sacrifice you are going to offer, but to help your neighbor. It's so important that if, for instance, if you are coming for Mass, and of course, Sunday is a day of obligation, and then you find somebody who needs to be taken to the hospital, what are you going to do? Are you going to leave your Mass because, to go to Mass is an obligation, or you are going to take that person to the hospital and miss Mass? And Jesus says, no, it's important that you serve your neighbor first. That you take the person to the hospital, even if you are to miss Mass. It's so important, the love that we have for each other. My dear brothers and sisters, this is what Jesus came to teach us, and the fulfillment of this love was shown in his death on the cross, when he died for you and for me. So, my dear brothers and sisters, as we continue to go through this novena, let us be reminded of who Joseph stood for, a man of prayer, a man who surrendered everything in the hands of God, a man who listened. There is no way in the gospel where you will hear the voice of Joseph, because he listens always to the voice of God. He was a man of prayer. He submitted everything to his hands. Let us therefore be reminded of the love that Joseph had for God and the love that he had for Mary and for Jesus. And may this love continue to lead us and guide us, especially on this journey through life.